Good morning, and welcome back to the Sage Sorority. Happy Thursday. How are we all doing, guys? Did you miss me last week? Oh, apologies. Where are my manners? I am your host, Shantel Russo. Welcome to the Sage Sorority. If this is your first episode, welcome, welcome, welcome. The Sage Sorority is a podcast for women in their 30s and 40s who are navigating life and the messy middle. Over here, we talk about everything from philosophy, ambition, self-concept and identity to friendship and dating. If that sounds like a little bit of you, definitely hit the subscribe button, follow us on all platforms, and leave us a juicy comment if you're listening on Spotify. Did you miss me last week? I have kind of been going through it, guys, and I should probably just tell you, I love you guys so much. This is my intimate pod fam. And yeah, I've been kind of going through it. The pod is a lot of work, right? And it's a lot of dedication and a lot of consistency. And initially, when I started the Sage Sorority, I wanted to give myself a year of no breaks. Every week, I would have an episode, put in the reps, get the marbles out of my mouth, and create a body of work that I would be proud of. I never set out to have dreams and aspirations of being like a Joe Rogan or like a Stephen Bartlett. That was really never my goal. I wanted to have a baseline of work that I was proud of, and ideally that work would open up to other things, specifically speaking. I want to speak in public. I want to speak to more of you guys. And when I say speak, I mean in your organization, specifically like employee resource groups, wellness, women's groups, even not women's, gender neutral talks, schools, and of course, like your culture panels, discussions, fireside chats, things like that. That is what I want to do. And I think I just had the assumption that, well, I know that I can speak and I've got face to camera content on my TikTok, but if I have the pod, that is even more proof that I can do this, and these are the things I speak about, and this is in my wheelhouse, and I'm capable of doing this kind of work. And speaking engagements can be tough because it's almost like you hear about things after the speakers are already booked. It's kind of hard to know what's happening in your niche, in your industry, and what's relevant. Sometimes you're lucky and you do. Sometimes, you're kind of finding out about it after it's already kind of hit that wave. And although I have Sage, my freelance work is not really in media. So I'm also not in a adjacent field, I guess, so to speak. So anyways, long story short and full transparency, that hasn't really happened. And I'm kind of trying to figure out why and how to bridge that gap. Not to mention, having a weekly cadence means that the episodes don't have a lot of time to breathe and promote before I then have to post another episode. So I have kind of been trying to figure out what kind of cadence I want for the pod. I've been flirting with the idea of going bi-weekly, and it's something I may not do. I'm just still trying to figure out a couple things before I make that decision, because I don't want to make it and then be like, oh no, I want to go back or whatever. And that's mostly because I do everything on my own. I don't have an assistant. I don't have a producer. I don't have an editor. I don't have a manager. Whatever type of help your average podcaster and or content creator would have, I don't have that. So I have been feeling a little bit burnt out, not because I don't love the pod and I don't love the content and what we talk about and all the topics that we cover. It's just because, frankly put, my inputs aren't yielding enough of an output at the moment. And I think if you've ever done content creation, then you know exactly what I mean. If you haven't, then it might be hard. But essentially, it's not easy to continuously do something for free. And especially if it's laborious, basically, right? Passion goes and comes, and discipline is ultimately what keeps you in the game. And it's not that I want to quit at all. I'm just trying to find the balance of also not running myself thin, burning out, and then the pod turning into something that I don't like. And that's not the case as it stands, I love the pod. I love the Sage Sorority. I love what I've accomplished. And I feel really proud of myself that I've gotten so far on my own, like, determination and skill set. But it's just a lot of work. And then I feel like episodes don't get the promotion that they deserve, don't get the runway that they deserve, because I'm a little burnt out by the time the pod goes up. And then it's like I have to create content and then promote the show before Wednesday comes around again. And I need to then upload a new episode for Thursday morning. And I say that because it's a bit of a mind fuck when you have to create content and then create more content to promote the content. And I know that sounds weird, but if you work in any type of media, creative content, then you totally understand what I mean. So that's where I'm at. That is why last week there was no episode, because I truly just didn't have it in me. And I don't want to put up slop, like not every episode is going to be like 1,000 out of 1,000, but I also don't want to just put up nonsense, like I value you guys' ears and your time and your thoughts, and the show is growing. I'm always looking at like my most popular episodes, and it's crazy because the first episode, The Reset, which was really just like an introduction and me launching the show, has only gone up in terms of most popular episodes, which I find hilarious. It was always pretty high. It was always in our top 10, but I think now it's like top 4. And it's like, the show is growing and people are listening to it. And I love that people are like, okay, let me just binge listen from the very beginning. But I don't want to put up crap. I want to come on here every week or whatever it is and give what I have. And last week, I just really didn't have anything to give. And I am struggling kind of with my inputs not matching my outputs. I actually went to a really good dinner party last week hosted by Stefanie Sword-Williams. I think I mentioned on the pod that I went to her event for her book launch. Her book is called Career Comedown, and really good for anyone who's in the 9 to 5 and building their career and maybe is a bit disillusioned with what they thought they wanted and where they're at now. She is an amazing speaker. She also had a book called F Being Humble, Fuck Being Humble, and she went viral, especially around 2020, 2021 for her work. She invited me to a dinner party that she was having in East London, and I went and I loved it. And one of the questions that came up was like, what is something that maybe you're really happy about or proud that you haven't celebrated? And I was like, honestly, I don't want to lie. I'm just not in that space right now. I feel like I said, my inputs aren't matching up to the outputs, and I don't feel celebratory about where I'm at right now. And that can be really hard to then drum up more content and more energy and all of the stuff to then deliver to everyone who does love it and who is interested, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a growth moment for me because that's not something I would ever really say to people, especially people that I'm not super close with. I didn't know any of the women there except for Stefanie. But I also wanted to be honest because some of the women in the room were aspiring content creators and looking to make that shift. And I wanted to be honest that sometimes you're speaking to a black hole. Sometimes you feel like you're putting in a lot of work and getting very little in return. And I want to be honest about that because I don't feel like there's enough content creators that are honest about that. And that doesn't mean you'll stay there, but you might be there much longer than you planned for, if at all. And I was talking about how I was feeling, and Stefanie's like, you're in the liminal space. And I was like, yes, I am. But what's bringing me down is that I feel like I've been in the liminal space for many years. And, a year, a couple months is one thing, but it's been the majority of my 30s, and that's been very hard to swallow. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it on the pod, but, I often say that moving to London was the best decision I've ever made in my entire life, and I do stand by that. But, and side note, I think this is somewhat tied to astrology. I saw something the other day about those in their second house. I think if they have Capricorn in their second house or something like that, which I do, we've been in like this 7-year lull. And I was like, oh my gosh. And if you're not into astrology or anything woo, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, what are the odds? But I felt so validated because honestly, guys, London is the best decision I've ever made in my entire life. However, career-wise, it has been the biggest setback. And I've said this before to my friends, so if anyone knows me personally, this does not come as a surprise. And again, being more comfortable with myself being seen. And if I'm going to be seen to anyone publicly, it's definitely going to be my podcast listeners, even though I do feel like this relationship is very one-sided because you guys know me in such an intimate way, but I have no idea who listens to the pod because it's not like Instagram stories or something, right? Where you can see accounts. I have zero idea who listens and who listens regularly. So I'll just have to be comfortable with the anonymity. But yeah, it's just been really shit. And to be honest, it was kind of shit from the very beginning. And it's not so much a money thing. I know that when North Americans move to London, salary is a big concern for them, and rightfully so. It's more about the hustle, the opportunity, and just feeling like I've really had to uphill climb to get the things that I do have. And you can be a bit disillusioned sometimes because, I worked really hard in my 20s, and I don't say that lightly. Unpaid internships full time where I would work on the weekends just so that I would have enough lunch money when I was at my internship and enough transit money to get there and back. So when I say like grafting for all my Brits and just working hard, I've done it. So it feels a bit deflating. And I'll say that's putting it in a really nice way, to be in this position. Now, if fashion content had taken off for me like, the dream is, I wouldn't have migrated maybe to TikTok, and I wouldn't have migrated to face to camera content, and I definitely wouldn't have started the podcast. So sometimes you are being pushed in a direction that is more fitting, and communication and talking and reading and sharing and just being a professional yap, so to speak, has always been my thing. My mom listens to the pod pretty regularly, and I'm sure she's nodding her head because I've just always been a talker. So I'm a bit like, okay, I've been speaking quote unquote professionally for quite some time. So where are the gigs? Where are the opportunities? Like, I'm so confused by this. And Steph gave me some great advice because she was so kind and very fluid. She told me this in January. She was like, you need to plan your own event, which I did. And I had the gathering and I was very happy with that. And I know I mentioned I wanted to do more events this year, and I do. I just think I'm in a little bit of a funk, to be honest. And if you've ever built something for yourself and it's been very slow to start, then you feel me and I feel you. I think that it's really hard in our day and age because you see so many people that are like, I finally found my thing and I did this and it took off, or I had 3 really slow months and then everything just clicked into place. And it's like 3 months, like, I love that for you and I'm glad that you held on, but it's like, that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like, where is that light at the end of the tunnel for me? Because again, I feel like I have done a lot, and I feel like, okay, if this isn't my thing and I'm running in the wrong direction, okay, fine. I have no problem with a pivot. I have no problem getting off this treadmill. And that's exactly what it feels like. It does feel like a treadmill where you're running, you're walking, you can see your steps going up and up and up, but you haven't really gone anywhere. I hope that analogy lands for somebody because I feel like that's the best one for me. And it's like, if I'm not supposed to do this, that's fine. But it's like, then what am I supposed to do? I think that's really tough. So yeah, I just wanted to be really honest because one thing I take pride in is my word. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And just know that because there was no pod, just know I really didn't have it. Like, I'm an earth sign. One thing about me is I'm going to be there. I might be a little late, but I'm going to be there. If I'm sick, whatever, I'm going to show up because I just take what I say seriously. And I don't want anyone to not take what I say seriously and to be able to rely on me. But I just really didn't have it. And I've been kind of struggling with, why does everything feel so difficult? Like, and that's been kind of hard to deal with. And then, you want to come on and do your thing and be the person that you want to be with a bit of levity. And, I want to do a pod where it's like I'm sitting there and I can just speak and speak genuinely and freely and energetic and proud about what I'm saying and the work that I'm putting out there. And then maybe not have to worry about, where the money's coming from or the gigs. or having to edit or having to, come up with then like social posts and captions and hashtags and creating like clips, because that's such a big thing now. It's like you can't just have a podcast. You have to have clips to then drive people to the podcast. And it's just a lot. It just becomes like this snowball where it's like you need more and more and more just to kind of push forward the original work, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that is a really long intro, probably the longest intro I've ever done on the pod. I know that the pod isn't really like a personal space for me, but I always say with you guys that like I'm in the thick of it with you too, and I always want to be honest. Like I don't believe in like necessarily like bearing out your whole life to strangers per se, but vulnerability begets vulnerability, and I want to be honest about where I'm at. Maybe someone can relate, maybe someone can't, but maybe we can all be a little bit more empathetic to people who are building and trying, because it is so not easy, and it makes things harder when you feel like digitally you are surrounded by people who are winning, because you can just feel bad about yourself. Like it's like I'm missing something. It's like I'm looking at an algebraic formulation and I'm just not getting it. And it's like, what am I missing, about my own life? And whether or not that's the right approach, and maybe it's not, but it can definitely make you feel bad. It's just how I feel. Like I feel like I'm staring at a problem and I'm just not getting it. And I don't have anyone around me that can guide me in that way. I don't have a business advisor. I don't have, seniors in the industry that know this or know that, or, just like a wizard who's like, hey, like you should try this or whatever. Everything I've done career-wise, 1000%, it's definitely me like tinkering and figuring things out on my own. Not saying I've gotten to this place on my own, because I truly believe no one creates anything on their own, but I don't have those intimate relationships where someone can be like, hey, like you should try this, like this is what the industry is saying, this is what's moving, this is what I think would be right for you, like take this meeting with this person, or let me introduce you to this person because I think that they could be very helpful, or whatever. And I don't want to come off as like me bitching. I'm just truly being honest, because sometimes hard work isn't enough. Sometimes consistency isn't enough. And maybe eventually it's enough, but that eventually might be so much longer and further and more expensive than you ever budgeted for. And that's how I feel. And it's tough because we live in a world where, people want to give advice. And if you have it, definitely share, especially if you work in media or creative, or you think I'd be a great speaker at your organization or anything like that. Whatever you have to share, I'm always open to listening, because people generally mean well. But anyways, without ranting, I just wanted to tell you guys what happened and be as honest as possible, because like I said, I'm in the thick of it too. So if you are struggling with work or personal or anything really, and you're just like, what's not clicking, just know you are not alone. So with that said, we are going to do an AMA episode. I haven't done one in forever. I've got 3 really good questions here that came through. Guys, you can always send questions. The link is always in the show notes. You can DM me as well. I've gotten a few questions on DM, or you can email thesagesorority@gmail.com if you're like, I just want to email it. Whatever works for you, send it through. Always happy to help. I don't know everything, but I think I know something. So let's get into today's episode. And I also forgot to mention that I'm in DC. So if the sound is not as crispy as it normally is, that's because I'm just kind of doing my own thing. So anyways, let's get into today's first question. Okay, so this actually came in through Instagram DM. I came across your video about networking, and I was really curious what you were going to say about following up and maintaining those connections. I'm trying to break into corporate tech jobs and also the film industry. A weird combo, I know. But I feel like I either never have anything else to say after getting someone's contact, or that they can tell I want something from them and then I feel bad about asking. How do you maintain connections without it feeling transactional? Okay, first, not a weird combination at all. I do feel like in 2026, there's so many generalists and multi-hyphenates now. I think that's a million different reasons, and obviously capitalism is definitely one of them, but definitely not weird at all. Both industries run entirely on who you know, I would argue, and who likes you. So the instinct to network hard is completely right, and I think you're doing a good job in that respect. The problem is most people were never taught what networking actually is. So they just do the version that feels gross and then they wonder why it doesn't work and then everyone shits on it, et cetera, et cetera. But here's what I think you're getting wrong. You're treating networking like a transaction that needs to check out and balance immediately. And that's not the best way to do it. You get a contact, and now you need a reason to follow up. Now you need to not seem like you want something, except you do want something. And that tension makes the whole thing feel very fake. And it feels fake because it is fake. And obviously, that model is going to fall apart. The version that actually works is a lot more simple. You stay in touch before you need anything. You keep connections warm, guys. This is very important. You can't meet someone, forget about them, and then circle back months later and be like, hey, I know that you can give me that thing, so can you give me that thing? That's when it feels gross if you're a decent person. You send someone an article because it made you think of them and a conversation that you had. You congratulate them when you see something good happen publicly. This is really good for people that you meet and you add each other on LinkedIn when they get a new job. Don't just like it and move on. Share a few genuine words. Wow, congratulations. That looks good. Time flies. Last time I saw you was XYZ. Now look at you, blah, 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 blah. Maybe even repost it. This is essentially the deposits that you're making, and you're able to build goodwill, which means something because when you want to have that ask, it's going to sound better and come from you stronger because it doesn't sound like it's coming from left field. None of this requires a strategy. It just requires you to actually be interested in people for who they are rather than in what they can do for you. And when you are genuinely curious about people, they can feel that and they can tell the difference. Likewise with you, you may feel like you don't have anything to offer in this time and space, but things change very quickly. And in any given moment, you could be on the side that has something to offer people, and you don't want to feel like people are just taking from you either. On the asking part, I really think women especially have been conditioned to feel like asking for something is an imposition, and it's not. This is just business, and I would argue this is good business. People who are good at their jobs and generous by nature want to help. They just need to know specifically what they're being asked for. Vagueness is a killer, and that is the problem. Can we grab coffee sometime is vague and hard to action. And if I don't have a relationship with you, even if I do, it might not sound very compelling. I'm trying to get into X and you've done Y. Would you be up for a 15-minute call, a 20-minute call this month? Is a lot more direct, specific, compelling, and interesting to the person receiving it. And it makes it easier to say yes. And if they can't say yes, it makes it easier for them to supplement with something that they can do. And then you follow up with a thank you. I appreciate your time. The key is in the follow-up. Even if you're doing cold emails and no one responds, the key is in the follow-up. People's emails get filled with whatever time of year. Your email might have gone to spam. It is crucial that you don't take the first non-answer as an answer. And a side note, I think women are also very conditioned to take no as a personal thing. Take it as neutral as you take a yes, because that idea of not wanting to hear no prevents you from doing what you need to do and asking what you need to ask. So get that out of your head immediately. And it's a lifelong lesson. I worked in sales, direct sales, B2B for 2 years where I got no's all the time. Because I'm out of rhythm in that kind of exercise, sometimes I still hesitate with making that ask. So that's why I say it's truly a lifelong thing, but it is really important. And one more thing on the film and tech combo, don't hide that from people. I think you should lead with it because it makes you different and it makes you interesting. And interesting people attract interesting people. I'm trying to figure out the intersection between tech and film is a much better opening than I work in tech. It's like, okay, you and a million other people. You've already got something most networkers don't, which is a unique point of view. So use that, lean into it, and I think you'll be fine. Okay, question number 2. Hi, Shantel. I've achieved most of what I said I wanted professionally. That's a good thing, right? Good salary, respected in my field, and finally got that job title I was chasing. But I feel genuinely empty, and I don't know if I'm just burned out or if I just don't want what I thought I wanted anymore. Everyone around me expects me to be celebrating, and I don't know how to explain it to myself, let alone everyone else, that I just don't feel like it. So this is an interesting question and point of view, and I get it completely. And this is what I'll say. So firstly, nothing is wrong with you. I just want to say that because I think you've been sitting with this feeling and then trying to convince yourself that something's broken. And I don't think it has. I think what you're describing has a name. And coincidentally, Stefanie Sword-Williams made a great book about it. I mentioned her in the intro, called Career Comedown. And the whole premise is exactly this. You've done everything right by every external measure, and you've left standing in the thing you worked very hard for, but you're feeling underwhelmed. And I think it's really common. I think it's always been common, but I do think in our day and age, post-COVID, and just like economically where a lot of us are right now, I think it'll become even more common. Especially for women who have been going hard in your 20s and early 30s. I think you kind of wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, like, do I still even want what I thought I did? And I genuinely think you should add it to your reading list because I do think it could give you some gems. And here's my take on what I think could be happening underneath. I think most of us built our ambition in response to something external. So maybe it could be a need to prove yourself being worthy of whatever, a fear of maybe being left behind. It could be finances. It could be a version of a future you that has felt very urgent since you were younger, whatever it is. And then you get there, the proof arrives, and you come face to face with the fact that maybe that goal doesn't really sit well anymore and it's never really been about the goal. It was always about the feeling. Oftentimes we're not chasing the goal, we're chasing the feeling underneath it. And that's what a lot of therapists will suggest as well. Like, focus on the feeling that you were trying to run after rather than the outside metric, because that outside metric might not feel good and it might not deliver the feeling that you were actually running towards. I hope that's not all word salady and you understand what I'm saying. And when that feeling doesn't show up the way you expected, you're kind of holding the prize and you're like, is that it? What was the point of this? And this happens a lot. I literally know a CEO who was an MD for many years and he finally got the CEO role. And I remember him saying, I don't even know if I want this anymore. And it's like, that's insane. Like, you've worked so hard for this, like the title, the glitz, the glam, the notoriety, and then you get it and you're just kind of like holding it. And you're just like, is this it? So it happens to the best of us. And sometimes the feeling is fleeting and temporary. It's just kind of that come down from all that anticipation. And sometimes it lingers. What I want to ask you is, before you were running after that title, who were you? What did you care about? Because I'd be willing to bet there's something that maybe got set aside somewhere between the version of who was still hungry for that and the version of who you are now. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean your career was wrong. It means you've cleared a level and the game has to change. That's just the way it works. What would you be doing if no one could see it? What would you care about if there was no title attached? What can you run after now that this is done and dusted, right? Maybe you're just a person who needs something to run after, and the fact that you don't have that, you're feeling a little bit lost. Start there. I think these are really good journaling prompts as well. I would recommend doing the practice of the artist's way if you haven't, which it's a few things, but one of the main things is journaling every day for 3 pages. And it's just that kind of brain dump, that mental dump, getting out your thoughts. If you're in therapy or you're working with a coach, I think this is a really good thing to think about as well, that now that it's been done and dusted and you have the title, you have the notoriety, you know, how can we drum up that excitement and that ambition for life, for your career, or maybe neither? I think that be easy on yourself because ambition is ever fleeting and ever changing. And just because, you know, you were a caterpillar and now you've opened yourself up and now you're the butterfly, it doesn't mean that it's over. We are ever changing and ever evolving. And even if you work up to a goal and you're like, okay, I did it, I saw it, I peeled back the curtain, and now I know it's not for me, that is a really powerful position to be in, and there's nothing wrong with that. I hope this helps, and definitely write in with an update when you have it. Okay, question 3. Hi, Shantel. I'm 34. I've been on a lot of dates in the last 2 years, and I keep meeting people who are just okay. good on paper, treat me well, nothing particularly wrong with them, but I absolutely feel nothing or close to nothing. I don't know if my standards have become unrealistic, if I'm emotionally unavailable, or maybe I just haven't met the right person yet. How can you actually tell the difference? Okay, so this is a really interesting question and probably not the worst position to be in. I love this question because I actually don't know if you are a woman or a man, which makes it even more interesting. But there's a couple of different directions I could go in, but because you're asking something most people won't say out loud, is the problem me or is the problem like the people that I'm meeting per se? And I'll be honest, I think that I feel fine, but I feel nothing pattern can mean a few things. And the real work is figuring out which one is yours and being really still with yourself. Like I always say, you go inward for answers, not outward. First possibility is very straightforward. Nothing is wrong with you or them. You just haven't met someone with the right chemistry yet. You guys know I talked about this in one of our previous episodes, compatibility, chemistry, and capacity. And there's different tiers for different relationships. Real life is not a movie. And sometimes you have chemistry with someone or you don't. And maybe you're someone who's really leading with that. And because you haven't had that, it just feels off. Another option is that you've just built a really good life for yourself and you're very self-sufficient. So there isn't much room for another person to actually mean anything. And what I mean by that is I think people get confused sometimes where they're like, I have a great life and I want someone to add to that. And that is a great thing. And that's what we all should want. But do you know what adding to that actually means? Like if you think of your day or your life as a pie chart, if it is super full as is, and you're adding a whole person into your life and having a relationship with them, naturally, you're going to have to wedge them in, i.e., you're going to have to make space somewhere. And sometimes I think that a hyper individualistic person forgets that, even though they want love, they want community, they want a strong relationship. And I think that goes for both men and women. I think men get away with it more because women are a little bit more pliable, where they're more likely to adjust to a man's life versus the other way around. But you just have to be realistic with yourself and what you want, right? And if you want someone in your life, know that that's a whole person with their whole life and their own things going on. And if you want to make room for that, then you actually have to make room. So I think that that is worth mentioning. And sometimes when you're going on dates, you're going through the motion because you're like, yeah, I do want this, but then you're not really making the sacrifice of actually adding someone into your life in that way because it just doesn't feel worth it. Another option is that sometimes you're chasing excitement and chaos because that's what you're used to. And when things just feel good, it's not good enough. Your brain registers it as not good enough. And now when you meet someone who's maybe straightforward and consistent and kind and generous from the beginning, it can just read as flat when really, actually, this is how someone should show up when everything is in place. And the absence of chaos gets mistaken for the absence of feeling. And that can be pretty uncomfortable to fit with and sit with if you are in therapy, especially one who specializes, oh my God, word salad, especially one who specializes in love and relationships, because I do think that there's a lot of truth to that for a lot of people. And this is how I would begin to kind of unravel it and see where the pattern lies. Obviously, if you're meeting great people and nothing's clicking, you can say, okay, it's either me or them. And I think that this is a way to kind of figure it out. So think about the last 2 to 3 people that you genuinely felt something for, even if it was a little bit. Just what did you actually feel? What was the situation? Were they unavailable in some way to you? Were you at your best, or did you feel unsteady or uneasy? Specificity truly reveals patterns. Get as granular as you can. Sit with yourself, journal, think about where you were at that time, how you felt about yourself, every little thing. Money, where did you live? How did you dress? What weight were you at? Like, be as specific as possible with those times in your life. And patterns also tell you where you've been lying to yourself, if only a little bit. And that's not me accusing you of anything, but that's just kind of how it works. And I'm not telling you that the right person doesn't exist, because I absolutely think they do for everyone. I would just want to make sure that you haven't accidentally learned to confuse like aliveness with instability, because maybe you had that in early stages of something real, versus that calm, that ease, and the fact that I truly believe in a slow burn, it can just register as nothing and as boring when you're not used to it. And with the right person over time, that safety and that capacity becomes the most meaningful thing you will ever have with somebody. So stay in it, do some investigation, do some journaling, and just be a little bit honest with yourself first before you go on the next date. I hope that helps. Okay, that was it. And this was our Ask a Sage. I haven't done one in a while. And I really do enjoy doing them because I feel like the questions are so interesting. And I love being able to do a little Q&A and help you with whatever your life is throwing at you at the moment. Obviously, at the top of the episode, I kind of gave you guys my life story. Well, just my life update, I should say, on how life is treating me at the moment. So it felt like a fair exchange. You know what I mean? But yeah, anyways, if you guys have a question for future AMA, friendship, dating, career, money, identity, self-concept, something light, something heavy, whatever is there, the link is always in the show notes. And I read everyone. I do get like some really random ones. So I love the juicy ones where I feel like I can really dive into your state of mind and help you figure something out. Obviously, leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. If you like this show, send it to a friend who you think could benefit from it and who needs to feel a little less alone in her drama. I love you guys so much. I am headed to Cannes Lion at the end of the month, not the end of the month, on the 21st of June. So if any creators, marketers, brands will be there, I would love to connect. I'm actually looking forward to it. I've had Cannes Lions on my list for so long. And I'm finally going. And then I'm going to enjoy the last few days of that week in the south of France with a friend. If anyone else is going to be out there, please DM me on Instagram. I want to meet all the people, go to all the events, even though I know that's not possible because it's going to be a busy week from what I heard, and it's crazy hot too. But anyways, just wanted to add that in. I really think I need to get in gear with planning another gathering. I know I did say early summer. I'm thinking about doing something maybe in the day on the weekend where we can have a little bit of rosé, a little bit of white wine, a little bit of ketchup. I just need to flesh out the ideas a little bit more. But if you have any ideas for my local girls in London, please let me know. Anyways, that was a long intro and a long outro. Have an amazing week, and I will talk to you next Thursday, I promise. Okay, bye.